Today is July 5, 2024. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything, and please subscribe. Also want to thank Sweeney's Pharmacy in Dublin for introducing me to today's guest, and both dedication to James Joyce. Deirdre Mulrooney, where in the heck you calling in from?
Oh, hello. Thank you, Jerry. It's so nice to be virtually here with you. I'm in Dublin city centre, actually very close to Sweeney's, just down the road from Sweeney's on Lower Grand Canal Street, Dublin 2.
How cool is that? The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
What is the best thing for a human being? To be happy,
Yeah.
to try and prioritize being happy and being true to yourself. I think that's the best thing that you can do.
Very good. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh, my favorite form. Um, I like, gosh, that's an interesting question. I like reading, but I love watching movies.
Well, let's go with reading just for a second. And side question: did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to, two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
Um, I'd like to say three, but really it was one. And it was because my father, not my parents, but my dad actually used to give me reading lists, and then he wanted me to do book reports for him on these on his reading list. Yeah.
How cool is that? What a cool dad.
He was a cool dad.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Why do we collect or gather info to try and make sense of the world that we're in?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
I think it's innate because I think it's a human instinct to try and make sense of, the world around us, why we're here.
Yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
No, emotions create thoughts.
Really good. Everybody says well, not everybody, but a lot of people say the opposite, or they say it's both. But it
Yeah.
is very interesting. The guy who does Research Magazine, he goes, do thoughts create emotions? He goes, emotions create emotions. But it is,
Emotions are the start. I mean, think of the word like,
yeah,
emotion, move, that's what motivates you, your emotions. And it's about, I suppose, becoming aware of that
it's
is
good because
important.
everything is e-books, this, and
Yes.
now you really made me aware. Emotions.
Yes. Yes. Well, as you know, I'm spent a lot of time in the dance world, and particularly Pina Bausch. And Pina Bausch is like from the inside out. Not how people move, but what moves them, and what moves you is the emotions, feelings. Yeah.
Amazing. Really taught me something there. Good. See, I heard this cliche once that I think applies. It's, if you can't say it, sing it. If you can't sing it, dance it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't sing it, dance it. Um, yeah. I mean, like so much is like trauma, is when you can't put your feelings into words,
Yeah.
you know? So, and I mean, like in the world that I kind of that has drawn me in, which is that world of contemporary dance, it's like since feeling is first, that's yeah.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
Write it?
Wow. Listen, McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Yes.
Really good. Can
Oh, and
you?
can I just add something? You just mentioned Joan Didion, and
Yes.
curiously, her son is in Dublin tonight at this very moment.
Yeah.
Griffin, the
Griffin
actor
done. Yeah. Yeah. Done. He
who was
just,
in After Hours,
yeah.
he's written a book and he's being interviewed at the Irish Film Institute at
Yeah.
6:30 p.m., like in half an hour. Yeah.
And his doc is good. His doc on Joan is good. Yeah.
Oh, I love to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been out a couple years, but yeah, he's just touring with his book now. Yeah.
I always wondered what happened to him because like that's such a cool film, After Hours, and then I feel we never saw him. What happened to that actor? Like,
Yeah,
so
that is a weird, I mean, I don't weird film. It is an engaging film because it really goes into performance art in New York City deeply.
it's surreal. It's
Yeah.
very surreal, isn't it? I love it.
Can humans think without language?
Like I was just thinking about this the other day. All the different languages, humans invent languages. So all different cultures, they have some kind of their own language. Do you know what I mean? Like we invent a system. So
Yeah,
like even, you could even like a language color could be a language or,
exact.
look, like this is a language. Oh, can I show you something?
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
What is that?
So it's actually Indian Sign Language for Aurora Borealis.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just reading that book, and there's a book, I forget the author's name there. It's called Indian Sign Language, and he has, yeah, written down Indian Sign Language from the 1800s. So
Yeah.
it's human to to have a language because we need to communicate.
Yeah.
So even to ourselves.
Yeah. Even Joyce putting 60 or 70 different languages in Finnegan's Wake plus English.
Hmm.
English is the dominant language in
Hmm.
Finnegan's Wake, but then there's a whole bunch of other languages. Most
Hmm.
people don't realize he also invented a new language called Finneganese.
Hmm.
So it's not just 70 different languages in English mixed up.
Yeah.
There's a third other element is he invented a language.
Yeah, and not only that, like I think everyone well, a lot of people do invent their own language. Like for example, in my family growing up, we had our own language. It was called Mulrooney.
You mean just with the kids or the adults and the kids?
Well, I mean, it was obviously invented by my father. So,
Oh, it was invented, yeah. Because one time, one of our members in our Finnegan's Wake group 25 years ago said, "Oh, I get it. This is like that secret language you make up with your brothers and sisters so you can talk and your parents don't know what you're talking about."
Oh, hilarious. Yeah.
Like you have a secret code words, like you do it with your friends when you're a kid. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
like inventing slang.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually, like with the Irish language, we often do that, like if we're traveling abroad, and we just want to talk but not have other people understand what we're saying, we'll try and go into Irish or so, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
you know what? Blarney is convincing someone to go to hell and they think they're going to have a good time.
Yes. And actually, though, I've been thinking about it because I was thinking about the Ojibwe language. So
Yeah.
that's a First Nations language. which I learned a few words of as a child, but I was thinking about like the syllabics, like it's written in syllabics. And then when the colonizers came in, they put phonetics on it to make it accessible, but
Yeah.
like syllabics, I mean, think about it, like hieroglyphs,
Yeah.
Chinese. It's
Yeah.
it's it's incredible, isn't it, what the human invents like to communicate?
It is amazing. I mean, McLuhan nailed it. He said technologies, meaning inventions, not just tangible, but language, print, spoken word, philosophy, is the most human thing. That our inventions are our most human thing. Most people are like, oh my God, AI, or they freak out about inventions. They go, oh, I don't like that invention. I don't use it.
Yeah.
But indeed, that is the way we extend our humanness the most.
Oh yeah, like I mean, in the Greek, the techne,
Yeah,
techne.
yeah.
That's all back to that, and what was before the Greeks. There was something for sure, Yeah.
Something. Well, this is Chomsky. He says a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is.
Oh
What do
yeah.
you what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Um. Like normally, like you're going to resort to gesture,
Yeah,
like, and there's so much conveyed through movement
yeah,
and the face, I mean, hence going back to that sign language, you
yeah,
know, Indian Sign Language, and it's amazing how much is transmitted non-verbally. I mean, again, we're going back to dance again, aren't
yeah.
we? Yeah.
You're
And, and also like intuition, there's a whole language, I think, of intuition and extra sensory perception, which is very natural, I think, as well.
I love it.
Mm.
ESP. So, your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Well, you see, it's that contradiction, isn't it? Between what we say, what we articulate, and what we're really thinking. And a
Yeah,
lot of language is actually about hiding, hiding what you're really thinking and feeling, even if you're aware of it. Do you know what I mean? That's what subtext is about, isn't it? Like
totally.
when you're watching a play, they're saying one thing, but actually the truth is somewhere else. It's not what they're saying.
Amazing. Don Marquis, this writer, said if you get people to think, they'll love you. If you get them to really think, they'll hate you.
Yeah. Yeah, God, don't utter the truth, for God's sake. Don't you know, like, how to win friends and influence people? That's not the way. The truth is not the way. Uh,
Well, here's two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
is thinking a function of the soul? Is thinking a function of the soul? Um, well, I mean, is there a soul? Like,
Yeah,
first of all, you're presuming, because some people debate whether there is such a thing as a soul.
yeah,
But say, like, if there is such a thing as a soul, I suppose everything starts there. So it's the other way around, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
No, definitely not. They can mimic thinking for sure.
Yeah,
Like, they can mimic humans, but absolutely not. No, I mean they're a techne, they're an
yeah.
invention of yeah, yeah.
Here's the ESP question you already anticipated. Do you more pursue meaning or more pursue happiness?
Well, they could be connected. Meaning and happiness could be connected. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It doesn't have to be like a dichotomy, I don't think.
And I got it from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says,
Yeah.
Happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning does."
But that's not, I mean, there could be happiness in meaning. So,
Yeah,
like in Man's Search for Meaning, that's your object, meaning. So, surely there's a kind of a satisfaction and a happiness when you've attained the meaning.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
like what is happiness? Like satisfaction,
yeah,
uh, peace,
yeah,
contentment, or does it have to be this kind of, oh, I'm so happy, you know?
yeah.
Just maybe
Well,
less,
say it again.
maybe less is more.
Less is more, Bucky Fuller, beautiful. I love that. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
The brain. Does the
Well,
brain
that's the you're a good listener because I asked the question at first, does the brain more? But then when I suss out the question a little more, I say, do we? So
Yeah.
it's hard because I could say, does the human more detect or create consciousness? But really the question is, does the brain more detect or create consciousness?
Hmm.
But that
Well,
again,
no,
just
but this is a very complex question
yeah,
because the brain, like when you die, your brain dead. Like it's I feel like there's electricity,
yeah.
in the brain. And then when that electricity is gone, we're brain dead. Does that mean it's the end of consciousness? Well, this is a mystery. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I can't answer that. We could
yeah,
talk about it and debate
yeah,
it, but I certainly can't say I know for sure.
yeah. But that's again, that's why I say you put the questions in the context you want because you don't, in my questioning, you don't have to answer the question. They're
Mm.
just prompts to say whatever you want, to air ideas.
I
So
mean, when
that's,
you think of like the brain, like the physicality of the
yeah,
brain, it's like gray matter with lots of folds. You
yeah,
know, there's so much mystery around that, like all of our thoughts, our whatever feeling, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and there's energy and there's electricity and it's mysterious. So, yeah, like I definitely can't, I can't see a definitive answer to that. I just
right,
say, oh yeah, what an interesting thing to think about.
right. And again, that's what I welcome is people don't have to you don't have to feel like you have to answer. You could say, "I can't answer that," or "I don't know," is totally valid. I don't want people to feel like me asking you these questions like you have to answer. You don't
Yeah.
have. In fact, Rebecca Solnit said it best. Just because you ask me a question doesn't mean I have to answer it.
Yeah, but it's nice to think about it.
Yeah,
Mull it over. Like
yeah,
I like to mull it over. All
I
right. It's
love that.
definitely, and then you get into this, you're getting into the whole area of philosophy and
Yeah,
I mean, we're in a mysterious area there. Especially
exactly.
because when you just look at the physical fact of the brain, and you look at that kind of cauliflower, you
Yeah.
know, and you think of everything that comes out of it, like, how? I mean, what? Do
How
you know
does
what
that
I mean?
happen?
Yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah, and
verb
then
yeah, it's back to ESP. It's verbal and nonverbal, telepathic,
yeah,
things. You're anticipating questions coming up, and how do you know? But here's the next question.
there you
What
go.
yeah, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light or speed well, thought is, and, thought is not necessarily fast, it can be very slow. Yeah, yeah.
Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer, her colleague, said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Who's the master anyway?
Right. And that's good because, again, you put it in the context you want. I open some of these questions with cue quotes. The basic question is what tool do you gravitate towards? You can add the word new if you want, and then you can add dismantling the master's house if you want. She was probably talking about white supremacy. But I mean, Frank Zappa said it well. He just asked a question: who are the brain police? He didn't say the brain police are these evil corporate consumer culture, or the brain police is the voice inside your head. So, by setting it up, the master's house, again, you can put that into the context you want.
I mean, that's very relative, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
like, in Ireland, that could have been the Catholic Church, or it could have
there you
been
go.
the
Yeah,
colonizer, or it could have been, like, so it's very relative. Who do we let, actually, who do we allow
that's
to be
it.
our master, right? By the way, I met Yvonne Rainer. I did a dance workshop with her. Yeah.
She's amazing. And
Have
then she does this flip on, Audre Lorde's quote's sort of known. Can we use their tools to dismantle that whatever you want to call it, supremacy or control or authoritarian control? And then Yvonne says, no, you could do it by exposing the tools. Well, good luck. How do you expose the tools and
you
show that the tools might work or they might not work?
Well, I mean, like, for example, if you're thinking about like the patriarchy,
Yeah,
um, like you want to dismantle the patriarchy, but then you get somebody like, Naomi Wolf, who is in probably quite patriarchal in her approach
yeah.
herself. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
That's using
Whereas
the, yeah,
what, like a true feminist wouldn't even use the terminology that
yeah,
a patriarch, would use. So yeah, just, it's, again, you're back to language.
yeah,
Whose language is it anyway,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, yeah. So no, I was very privileged to meet Yvonne Rainer a couple of times actually, and
You,
do dance. I learned Trio A from her. Her,
wow.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a dancer, by the way. I mean, I do have a body I can move. So like I was able to do, and it was just amazing, the way she dismantled her choreography and was able to teach it, and we were able to learn it and then get our head around it. Like, choreography and is another language, movement, learning those steps. And what I was really interested in about that was that, like, she's a postmodern choreographer dismantling, classical dance, but yet
Yeah,
what I learned was that her vocabulary for Trio A, which is a very subversive piece, is down to classical ballet: first position, second
yeah.
position, third position. And I was like, wow, this is really kind of mind-blowing, yeah. So
It's like a lot of these artists like Jackson Pollock, he studies a bent and a landscape painter, and then like how does that go to that they're rooted in the
yeah.
in the previous, the history, and
Yeah.
then that enables them to go, well, how can I stand on their shoulders and look farther?
Yes. So, and she was dismantling,
Yeah,
the established classical by being subversive
yeah,
by using their tools,
Their own tools, yeah.
right? Ballet
Exactly.
positions. So yeah, interesting, isn't it? You have
Very
to go from the known to the unknown, I think.
known to the unknown's a better way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
So what new toy do you suggest?
A new toy, a new toy. Well, I tend to jump around a lot. I don't stick to one genre. You know what I mean? I leap from one to the other all the time. So,
Yeah,
a new toy. Um, I very much I have a beginner's mind, and I really embrace that. I don't ever like to start from a position, a kind of an arrogant position in anything. So it's always new.
yeah,
It gets a bit boring if it's, you know, an old worn thing you've been doing over and over again. So the new tool is start from the beginning again.
very good, yeah,
Going back to first principles, because like, well, I've written a lot about Edward Said Orientalism,
yeah,
and the nation narration, and I wrote about Orientalism connected with Pina Bausch's work. And Orientalism is Western conceptions of the Orient,
yeah,
right? So in other words, we have already got a narrative in our head, and before we meet the Orient,
yeah,
we don't see it for what it is. So you have to peel all that back, everything you think you know, and just meet what's in front of you. That's the new tool. And every time it should be new, you know? You should be just taking what's in front of you like for what it is, as opposed to what's being projected upon it already.
yeah. Yeah, being a filmmaker, have you seen or, checked out any of these interviews with Elaine May? There's a new book about her, and she is made some important films, but when she was starting her career with Mike Nichols, they were comedians and writers, and then
Yeah,
she got flopped into filmmaking, and she was like, "I'll do this," and she didn't know how to, like, even focus, or she didn't even know how to run a movie set, but she just said, "Oh, okay, well," and the cinematographer's teaching her. But it's an amazing story. You should just look into a little of it because
yeah,
it's similar to what you just said. She didn't go, "Hey, I can't direct, get someone else and I'll just stand on the side because I'm the writer." She goes, "Oh no, I'll do this."
yeah, yeah. I'm a bit like that. I think it's like also like being an outsider,
Yeah,
like you're just used to being an outsider, not never an insider who, you know what I mean? So
then
kind
you
of,
can see things with new eyes rather than
yeah,
you're just you don't have the reality tunnel on, the blinders, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'm kind of I've been brought up in that space, so I'm kind of
Good.
comfortable in that space. Yeah.
That's good. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Oh, I worry. Oh, well, I worry about getting funding to make my projects.
Yeah.
I worry I'm not doing enough to, you know, make them happen. Yeah. That's what I've been worrying about.
No, I appreciate your honesty. You're concise, and I appreciate this. And this is about Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. So dancers, musicians, filmmakers, everything that you are. Okay. They're the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Deirdre, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Because these are very often like very uncomfortable
Yeah.
truths, you know. Look what happened to Lucia Joyce. I mean,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, then there was gender in that as well, but her father was the same, like, you know, and so many artists. Look at Samuel Beckett. He
Yeah.
wasn't trying to please anybody, was he?
Yeah.
You know?
Amazing. So, do artists have moral obligation?
I think that artists, well, they can't help it, because if they do anything else, they could. You know what I mean? Like look at Peter Brook, the theater director.
Yes.
You know, he was like, I'm not able to do anything else. I mean, I like you just are compelled, like you just
Yeah.
have to do it. You don't have a
Yeah.
choice, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Afraid. I'm not afraid of ideas.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by ideas.
Yeah.
And even like I think, you know, like look at WB Yeats. Um you know, he's accused, many people accuse him of having been a fascist, you know.
Yeah.
But if you look at his poetry, um like he was the kind of person who he wasn't afraid of ideas, bad
Yeah.
ideas, scary ideas, ideas of fascism, and he, you know, that's how come his poetry was so prophetic,
Yeah.
because he went in there and he explored it, like hype, you know, the ideas of it, and then it came out in an intuitive way, and he was able to convey it, and he was able to convey the kind of horror. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
look at Picasso, Guernica. Like that's a pretty scary idea, but
Yeah.
like he had to be brave to convey that as well. Do you know what I mean? And Yeats, Yeats very much like in his kind of more apocalyptic poetry. What's it? Slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. Um, that poem. Oh my gosh, it's so. And this was in 1939.
Yeah.
What dark beast? What's the line? But it's completely about what was about to happen in World War II. You know,
Amazing.
that's a
Yeah.
scary idea. That's terrifying. You know, but like he had to go there because
Yeah.
he's, or it doesn't mean that he was a fascist. It means he was interested in all the thought and the big universal unconscious that was going on at that time. He was plugged into it, and he wasn't shying away from that darkness.
Yeah. Really well put, because a German government official was touring the artist studios in Paris when Picasso was painting Guernica. And he walks in, and there's Picasso working on Guernica. And the German goes, "Did you do that?" And Picasso said, "No, you did."
Very
Can you?
good. Is that
Yeah.
true? Yeah.
Yeah. The story. Well, anyways, the story. I believe it's true.
Mm.
Actually, one guy corrected me and says it wasn't a German; it was somebody else. So, anyways, it's just, them capturing their zeitgeist. It's like, well, one of my heroes, and I'm sure you love her, is Martha Graham. She goes, "Great artists aren't ahead of their times; they are their times."
Mm, mm, mm.
So they're embracing this. So
Yeah.
can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
My earliest memory. It's you see, it's hard to know because we have got a lot of photographs And actually, when I was born in Toronto, my dad was into photography, and he, believe it or not, and you couldn't make this up, but he learned from the draft dodgers. I
Wow.
know. What do you think of that? You know? And they were into Super 8 and the dark room and developing photographs and all that. And he learned from them. And my parents bought a house in Toronto, and it had many floors, and they had to rent out rooms and to pay the mortgage. And the draft dodgers moved into the top floor, and they set up a dark room, and my dad was learning photography from them and learning how to use the dark room. And of course I was the subject, of all these photographs that were being developed in the draft dodgers dark room. Can you believe that? So there's so many photographs like of me. So it's hard to know, because it's when you look at photographs,
Yeah.
it activates your memory and you remember, but you're only, I think you're remembering by this photograph triggering a memory. So, oh yeah, so one of my great memories was in the house. There was a playpen, and there was a jolly jumper. Did you ever see a jolly
Yeah.
jumper?
Yep.
It's a thing where the baby is in this thing, and it's suspended, and you can jump up and down. And
Right.
I really remember. I have great memories of that. I don't know if it was my first memory, but
Right.
like, yeah, yeah.
But
So
no,
between
that's
all of that, it's like, yeah,
no,
well, early.
you're articulate and concise. I appreciate it. And I really got a picture of that by you describing it. You didn't even have to show me a photo. But do you think memory is more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, it depends if you've great memories, like, if you've a memory of jumping up and down in the jolly jumper, like, that's a fantastic memory. That's a
Yeah.
blessing. But if you've had been terrible times or been treated badly, it must be, horrible.
Yeah. Tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model. And what specifically was that impact?
So wait, first of all, in your family,
Yeah, in your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you. And what,
immediate family,
yeah,
like, does that,
however you want to define immediate family. Yeah, someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
well, I mean, I obviously my dad had a big impact on me, but I could also say, like, my grandmother had a big
What
impact on
did
me.
you yeah, you did tell us a lot what your dad
Yeah.
how he influenced you. How did your grandmother influence you?
Yeah, like my grandmother, like both of them, but the one in particular who I mean, they're both fantastic, but who was incredibly charismatic, and I feel like she invented the power of positive thinking before it was
Yeah.
ever written in a book. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
she just infused such, like, positivity and belief, like self-belief in you. You know what I mean? Like, she just was an incredible. I was very lucky to have her in
Well,
my life.
where do you think she got it? Was she raised in Ireland?
She was raised in Ireland. I mean, now, like, I have to say that she was a very, very religious person. She's very religious. But I think that was an expression of her spirituality and her
Yeah.
own. inner power. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, everyone is within their era, and you just find you can only use those tools that are around you to
Yeah.
express that. I think she did that, but it was more. It was beyond. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah. She had
No, I love that.
17.
Power of positive thinking is an amazing thing. It's like, why wouldn't you want to have that? So many people are like, I think that's part of the key.
Absolutely. And whatever, like, you're talking about language, like, was available to her. Do you know what I mean? Like, her catchphrase would be now, everything lovely, everything, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just, look, we all know, like, people who like suffer from depression and are like, I mean, like, yeah. So I think she had a really good influence, a big influence on me. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, same question outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what was it?
Let me see, outside my immediate family. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people. Now let me just think about that. So I'm thinking like later in life. Um, Let me think. That's hard because I hang on, because I'm back there, but now let me go on a little bit. Well, I would say some teachers,
Yeah.
like, well, one of my tutors who kind of recognized what I was doing, and even if I didn't recognize it, they recognized it and reflected it back to me, and I was like, wow, that's, you know, like, it was a,
Yeah.
yeah, very important, a validation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that. One of my teachers said, you haven't specialized, and that's good because we're raised to specialize. Okay, Deirdre, what are you going to be? A filmmaker or a dance or an author or a
Yeah.
radio curator or a photographer? Which one? Is like, no, you can be all of them. And you
Yeah.
don't have to, because they think you have to specialize. What are
Yeah.
you going to be when you grow up?
Yes.
I ask students when they're walking in sometime, I go, what do you aspire to do or be? And they'll go, oh, 3D animator, oh, editor. And then this one woman said, a good human being.
Yeah.
I said, that sounds better, than
Yeah.
everybody career oriented. They just are aspiring to be a good human being. So,
Yeah. And then, I mean, like, things change so much, like, you could never imagine. I could never imagine, like, I'd never heard of Peanut Bausch or contemporary
right,
dance, or, do you know what I mean? Like, how could you know that in advance? Like, you could,
right.
and yeah, things open up as you go along.
Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
I only realized that, like, when I was about 20, that I was an ethnic minority. But, like, I have to say that, again, like, my dad wanted me to go to Protestant school. Uh Obviously, well, I grew up in a Catholic separate school board, or, but yeah. And actually, believe it or not, my brother, one of my youngest brother, um he was sent to Protestant schools. Like, my dad went to Trinity College
Yeah.
in the 60s, when you'd be excommunicated from the Catholic Church for going to Trinity. And
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And he didn't care, obviously. Well, not obviously, but he didn't care. But his father was very worried, and he had a meeting with the bishop, about his son being excommunicated. And the bishop told him, oh, no, well, actually, because he worked in London for a year or two, at Wall's Sausage and Ice Cream Factory to get his fees, that's a little loophole, so he won't be excommunicated for
Yeah.
going to Trinity. So yeah, like, I mean, I went to convent schools and that, but I think, like, yeah. So I was brought up in that way, and you only realize it afterwards. Like, I remember talking to somebody, a dancer, and she and her husband had lived in Toronto. And I said, oh yeah, I was born in, St. Michael's Hospital. It's right in the center of Toronto at Yonge and Queen. And her husband said, oh, you mean the super Catholic hospital? And, like, I was
Super.
like, no, but it was like this epiphany where I suddenly went like, what?
Yeah.
What? I was born, come on. Like, I just discovered that I was born. I thought I was born in the center of Toronto, which means the meeting place at Yonge and Queen. What a
Yeah.
cool place to be born. And
Yeah.
suddenly I was told that I was like an ethnic minority. Do you know what I mean? So you learn as you
You learn.
it's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah.
My mom was, my mom and dad raised me Roman Catholic, and they were Catholic their whole lives. And my
Yeah.
mom, when the 60s broke and she was a nurse, she worked for Planned Parenthood. That was against the church. You couldn't do that. But she says, no, I'm going to do that because this is responsible,
Yeah.
teaching birth control. And then, yeah, I found out years later the Catholic Church owns stock in IG Farben, who invented the birth control pill. So talk
Wow.
about creating the disease and offering the cure, or the
Yeah.
opposite of that. But the
It's
really hidden
very
question,
complex.
yeah,
Yeah.
the real hidden question is, do you pray?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
do, because,
yeah,
like we were talking about, the brain, and it, like, this cauliflower, which produces everything, our thoughts, feeling, like, I think it'd be really arrogant to think that we knew everything.
yeah,
So I 100% know that I don't know everything.
yeah,
And and I like this idea, not even that I like it, but I just feel it's a fact that there's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of stuff that's beyond our understanding.
right,
And sure, look, you might as well hope for the best, why not?
exactly.
And also, like, like, when you think about, like, creative visualization and even self hypnosis and all that, it's kind of like praying as well, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
repeating something to yourself, and you're saying it's possible, and you're saying, make, do you know what I mean? You're articulating what you
yeah,
wish for, and that's, the brain is very powerful,
yeah,
you know, like, you kind of can program. It is possible, I think,
yeah,
so, like, that's all connected. So why not pray? And, like, surely when things go very bad or something terrible happens, it just feels good to kind of say a prayer, like, and also I feel
yeah,
it's a way of, like, respecting your ancestors as well, who
yeah.
prayed a
I
lot.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also touched on, again, something we had told my dad in the 60s and 70s when we started eating health food. We go, "Dad, there's preservatives in that." And he goes, "I need all the preservatives I can get." If
Yeah.
God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
If Okay, welcome.
Yeah, I get that. I love that. Do
Yeah.
evil do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Now, Yeah, like that's a, I mean, I think there's like evil, and there's a lot about mental health issues, to
Yeah.
be honest. Do you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like I just hearing, there's loads of this case, like this woman who killed her mother, and she was hearing a voice that her mother had to be
Yeah.
killed. And I mean, like, that's a mental health issue. Is it evil? Like, um, like my boyfriend is a neuroscientist,
Yeah.
and he told me there's this one part of the brain, is it the amygdala? If you get a hit on that part of your brain, it actually does turn you into a killer, like,
Yeah.
um there is bad stuff out there, like, for sure, but there's also mental health
Yeah.
issues.
Well, the hidden question, and you anticipate it, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'm going to set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So again, it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Um, I kind of like that one. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, because you actually are quite close to your enemy. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, um, but I learned a lot from doing Tai Chi. Uh,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. Um, like, I learned an awful lot. Uh, like, that Tai Chi is like yielding, so you don't face force with force. You sort of step to the side and let their energy knock themselves out.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to learn from that.
That's huge. A young person came to our weight group and he learned judo and jujitsu. And he says, the best warrior is the one who doesn't fight the fight. They know how to like just step aside and let it happen. But
And let
also,
them knock themselves out, because you know what I
yeah,
mean? If
let
they're
them knock
pushing the
themselves out.
velocity, they'll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also you're a good listener because I layer these 4 quotes on and people get lost and try to hear all of them and listen to them all. But the Coppola one is interesting because keep your friends, your enemies closer. That's American Indians, indigenous natives say your enemy is your best teacher. So, do you want to keep them close because you want them to learn from them? But then here's the irony of it is what Nassim Taleb says, that games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. And then my
Mm.
friend said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And then Gregory Bateson said, oh, the criminal gets caught. Does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. You can go wherever you want, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
Well, yeah, well, that's very interesting, because I actually had a conversation with, Nastasha.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were talking about that last Friday night, and she said she doesn't believe in prison or punishment. You know, we were talking in particular about the case of the young woman who was attacked by a guy who's in the army, in the Irish army, and knocked her unconscious and broke her jaw. And the judge, I don't know, you're probably not familiar with this case, but there were protests all over Ireland because it finally came up, and her assailant got a suspended sentence
Yeah.
of 3 years. And the judge said, "Oh, I don't want to like affect his career in the
Yeah.
army."
Yeah.
And I mean, people were in outraged at this. Many people,
Yeah.
and like yeah, like I mean, if he gets a suspended sentence, like that encourages
Yeah.
any guy to just throw a punch and knock them out, and you're not going to have any punishment, like, I mean, there has to be punishment, there has to be example. I mean, Nastasha was like, oh, they only come out from prison worse than they go in. But actually, there's so much rehabilitation in prison. Like, they get education and rehabilitation. I suppose another thing is they get free accommodation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is quite expensive for the state. But like you have to set a precedent. You can't go like, oh yeah, that's fine, like,
Yeah.
you just knocked this girl out and broke her jaw and knocked her unconscious. Sure, that's grand. Like, it's not grand. So there
Mm.
has to be, in my opinion,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
punishment and rehabilitation.
yeah.
But you can't let these people out in society to recommit the same crimes with no impunity. What do you think?
Well, Kirby Dick made a documentary in America about women who get raped in the army in America cannot sue. They can't do anything. And
What?
Kirby says, all I want to do is make this movie so that Obama's administration will watch it. They watched it, nothing changes. You can't sue. So you
Why?
get raped. Yeah, it's for real. You can't do anything. You just
Why?
get, because whatever it's, I mean, it's similar to the, who knows why. I haven't seen the movie, but maybe the movie answers the question. But I'm just saying there's a lot of these injustices that happen throughout the we want the justice system to work. We want laws to work, but a lot of times they don't work, and a lot of times it's called selective enforcement. So
No,
it's
well,
like,
you need to mitigate like violence against women. I mean,
yeah,
it's endemic, like,
I mean, what's the
and
first
there has to
images?
be.
The first images we see is a caveman pulling the woman by her hair. It's like,
Mm.
who started this?
No, and
Right
also,
off the,
like, you talk about like equality, but like in my, like, it's not just my opinion, like it's a fact.
yeah,
Like, I know, like, there's a lot of stuff around gender these days. The world has changed a lot, but men and women are different.
yeah,
Like, men, I hate to admit it, but men are physically stronger
yeah,
than women. That's fact. So like that's why you can't, I mean, as well as the violence, like you can't have men competing against women in sports. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's hard to say. People like freak out when you say that. And I
oh,
know
but
what
you
you're saying.
can't,
Yeah,
and like the biology is different. Like, it's
yeah,
completely different. Like, I believe in equality, but you have to acknowledge that men and women are
yeah,
not the same. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So
So let's get into James Joyce a little. He was the first projectionist in Dublin at Volta Cinema. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, okay, I got to go back to what you said initially, but obviously this is like Greek theater. We're talking about catharsis, like
Yeah.
this is started, well, our understanding of it. Aristotle is the person who
Yeah.
articulated that in the Poetics. But wait a minute. Did Joyce say that? No. I mean,
Well, I've studied Joyce for 30 years, but I'm an anecdotal person.
yeah.
Somewhere along the line, somebody said that, and no one challenges me except the greatest scholar on experimental film. So you're the first one who ever
No, I
challenged
just
me.
knew because
Besides P. Adam Sidney, he says he didn't say that, so I should say Joyce allegedly said this.
yeah.
That's
But
what
that's
I should
right.
say. But yeah, it is
I thought that he
ironic.
walked to yeah. He
It's
walked because it
just
didn't make
listen.
money.
It's ironic to even say it because Joyce used words and he didn't check. People say he checked out of the cinema because it wasn't a financial success. But
Well, of course.
someone said along the line that line. So again, thank you for listening. So I should have said allegedly, but it's sort of
Yeah.
more like Faulkner saying sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. So when you make documentaries, but they're more essay films. You kind of based the Lucia dance film on a photograph and you studying her. And
Mm.
you got whatever. You embellished it or elaborated on
I
it to
meditated upon it.
you meditate upon it, and that's the beauty of it's like when people teach creative writing, they either go write what you know or they go make stuff up. That's what
Mm,
imagination is. So there's a combination. It's so
mm,
really
yeah.
it's the question really is saying why do we have to have art? And I mean it's evident we love art, we have to have it to catharsis and get some innerness out of our body, like Pina Bausch. Get your inner out. That's what T.S. Eliot said. Poetry is outing your inner dialogue. So
Mm.
why? I mean, it's basically saying, why do we have to have theater? Why don't we just live life? Why do we have to have theater? That's really what the question is.
Well,
So
I mean, you see, it's different, right? Because theater, the roots are in ritual,
yeah,
and ritual is about human beings coming together
yeah,
and sharing this experience, maybe sharing a catharsis. And the
yeah,
artist is like what Antonin Artaud said, like, is the one who's like signaling through the flames, and they're like the priests, and there's almost something like religious about it, like, and in the Greek theater, like there was a religious statue there, you know what I mean, and it was a kind of like almost like a sacred thing for the community.
yeah.
Reading is different because unless you're in this Sweeney's
Wait group.
yeah, but otherwise, like, you're reading up by yourself, so that's different.
That's how Joyce transformed it all. He says, I'm going to take a solo experience reading you, black ink on white page, and the author, and make it a clarion call where everybody's reading out loud. I mean,
Yeah,
last week at Sweeney's, there were 5 college kids there, and all 5 of them read like they knew what they were doing. And it was like,
amazing.
wait, have you guys studied this? No, they just know how to read well. So if you just put printed word in front of them, even if it's gobbledygook, they will make like they know. And Tom said it best. They acted like they knew what they were reading. And then
Yeah,
the one woman, I says, well, how to make you feel? She goes, well, I felt like I knew what he was saying, and then I forgot because it brought her to the immediacy of living in the moment.
Mm,
He was
mm,
living in the moment because all of us are staring at her script, watching how she might flub a word. So we're more aware of reading when you're reading Finnegan's Wake because you're trying to find why did that person miss that syllable or
mm,
say that syllable this way? You're
mm,
more aware because then otherwise you're just casually reading. Like we
mm.
all casually read, just like we all casually breathe. We don't
Mm.
go,
I am breathing. I must remember to breathe. Oh my God. Yeah,
this,
yeah,
this
yeah.
guy, this guy I interviewed yesterday, he's a drummer. Before every answer, he would go. And it was so amazing because it made me more aware of being there. And I says, that's what George Carlin's daughter did when I interviewed her. She took a breath. She's a psychologist. She took a breath. Then she would crack up and laugh. Then she would answer the question.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Hilarious.
you ponder and you sort of look up
Yeah.
before you answer.
All the answers are written up there.
Well, you know what it is. Do you know NLP, neuro
Yeah.
linguistic programming?
Yeah.
Have
What?
you?
Tell us. I mean, I've heard
Well,
of it,
you
but
ask your boyfriend if he knows NLP. Neuro linguistic programming is it's a procedure of persuasion.
mm.
You can study it like you could study NLP and go get your grants and get these grant people that just give you the
Oh
money.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
but
yeah. I just mirror them. If I just mirror them a
that's
little
it.
bit,
That's
yeah,
what NLP is, mirroring. But just to make the point really quick is
yeah,
when I ask you this question at the end, they say watch which way the person's eyes go. Do they go up, down, or straight ahead? And
yeah,
then they have a code like, well, if you look up, you're this kind of person. If you look down, you're that kind
yeah,
of person. I don't know. I don't use it in that regard in the NLP way, but
yeah,
but I think it's interesting how we treat Finnegan's Wake as a living organism because
yeah.
it's alive and because it really doesn't matter and people hate to hear this. It doesn't matter what words you're reading.
Yes,
It's
it's the
he
music.
did a great job of gobbledygooking a lot of great words. So people,
Oh yeah, and getting
yeah, he
away
did a
with it.
great job. But some people go, "What this is bullshit."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter so much as it's good enough that it will unite people to do it alive, and it's the
That's
moment you're
amazing.
reading it out loud, you know.
And it's just shared. I like that shared experience. By the way, you just reminded me, this guy I knew, he obviously had read that book, or he had done a course in like
On
NL.
NLP,
And I never forget it. Like he said to me, I was talking to him and he asked me some question and he goes, "Oh my God, you look left. You look left. You're lying. You're lying. You're lying." It's like, what the hell? Like,
well, it's here's the thing about it, and again, ask your boyfriend because Milton Erickson is an amazing scholar on hypnotism, which is a word you brought up earlier. And
yes.
these guys are were successful at sort of forming, combining hypnotism, Milton Erickson with anthropology. And NLP is sort of, important and it works. But then they all went cocained out and they one of them killed their wife or something. And they were out of the picture for a long time and they're still
Mhm.
around. NLP is still around,
Yeah.
but it's a
Yeah.
little, it's a little sleazy. It seems to be a little sleazy in a way. But if
Yeah.
you study, I mean, Frogs and the Princesses is a great book. I mean, like your friend, he probably got a lot from it, and maybe it
Yeah.
helped him. Who
No, but
knows?
also like, I mean, like it's a bit reductive, because
Yeah,
even if it was like if you're left-handed, if you're right-handed, if you're
yeah,
ambidextrous,
yeah.
you know, like you might look right instead of left and then
No,
be totally misinterpreted. Do you know what I mean?
but that's
Because
what words are. We don't realize words are reductive. And
totally.
you being into dance, is
Yeah.
dance reductive? I mean, to me, dance is that free form Martha Graham, Grateful Dead, just free form. But then how did Yvonne Rainer get to her point? Was she studied the known and then
Mm,
reached for the unknown. So,
mm,
it's a combination. It's like
mm,
it's like Joyce couldn't have done The Wake without Tristram Shandy, Vico, Dante,
mm,
and all the stuff, and Aquinas and all the stuff
mm,
that he gathered, you
mm,
know, and
mm.
then put it in a big soup and mixed it together and go, "Here."
Yes. And then getting like I find it amazing, like the book, the examination of our,
Yeah,
but then like he did his own marketing. He got
he
these guys
he
to
I
advertise.
it took me 30 years to realize this. He invented the Finnegan's Wake Reading Club 10 years before The Wake came out and
Yeah.
put it in a book. And here's Willis Carlton Williams and Beckett all sitting around talking about
David.
this. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's like, give me a break. He knew what he was doing. He was starting,
absolutely.
because I always say T.S. Eliot started the first Finnegan's Wake Reading Club in 47 in New York.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Joyce invented it in
He did.
29.
He did. But he himself was a kind of a marketeer, like, I
Yeah.
mean, he read this book by Woolley, wasn't it? It's called The Art of Selling Goods.
Oh, I
And,
didn't know this. Yeah, well,
yeah. And, he was coming up with all these schemes to like, whatever, sell tweeds and
yeah,
this and that and Trieste and the cinema, the idea to get
yeah,
these investors together to come and start this great idea. Dublin had no cinema, but this was Joyce the marketeer. Like he was an expert at marketing his own,
yeah.
even though he was so obscure. He wasn't so obscure that he didn't recruit people to market his work.
Yeah, and talk about you getting funding. Study how Joyce got all these rich ladies to give him money.
Yeah, exactly. And then treating them bad, like, and treating them bad, Yeah.
So, walk us through. I mean, you have so many great callings, but I think maybe your first calling was being a writer. Is that what would you say was your first calling? Dance, writing, uh, theater, or film?
No, you're right. You're correct.
Okay, for what was the tipping point for you to go, "Oh, I wanna be a writer?" Your dad, like you said, very revealing early on. My dad told me to read. You
Yeah,
said, I wanted to say I came up with it on my own, but he
yeah,
told and he was telling you to read these books and write book reports aside from your schooling. These
yes.
were different. So then you're doing that, then you go to high school, then you go to college. Where did you go, "Oh, I wanna be a writer"? Where was that tipping point where I can write, where you actually started writing? I mean, was it writing the book reports maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, right, a lot of them were just spoken reports as well.
Oh, so you didn't have to write
Right.
it down.
No,
Oh.
I had to give a spoken, report.
Well, that's almost like him knowing getting you to be theater before you were, like, writing the script in your head and then saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, debating or, like, that kinda thing. No, but I always, wanted to do, well, writing is hard, like, so you could want to write, but you're not gonna be able to just,
Yeah.
write that thing. But I always did want to do, um kind of like journalism, and
Right. I
in,
see.
interviewing people. I love that, like interviewing people and asking any nosy question that
Yeah.
like having that like passport too, where you can just go around finding
That's a
things.
great word. That's exactly why I do it. I
Yeah,
when that question, I don't know what I think until and you said write it.
yeah.
You know what I say? I don't know what I think until I ask someone else what I should think. Or what they think, and then
Yeah.
I can repeat it and go, "Well, I don't agree with that." What did you study in high school and college then?
Oh, so in college, I went to UCD. I did English and French. And then for the third, I wanted to do psychology, but it didn't work out in terms of you couldn't do English and French, and and then I had options. I was going to do logic as a third, but then I did philosophy as a third subject, English, French, and philosophy. And
Right.
so I did English and French.
Yeah.
And then I did French. I mean, I love languages, and I love traveling as well, like, so
Yeah.
French.
Yeah.
Um and then I did MA in modern drama studies. So Peter Brook.
Yeah.
Um and that's I wrote my thesis about on Peter Brook and The Tempest. And then Pina Bausch, but I always wanted to do film, like storytelling, and also like, I mean, like there's life is so like remarkable. There's so many incredible. I believe that I love facts. I think fact is stranger than fiction, and I believe that pay attention if you really pay attention to the facts, like the it's just incredible what comes out,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
No,
So
you covered a lot there, but it's interesting because it does seem you have there's a great video on YouTube of you talking about this newspaper you worked for,
oh,
or is it
Passion,
what's it called?
Paris Passion magazine.
That really reveals a lot of who you are. That's
Does it?
so it's so concise, and
Yeah.
it's good because I see what you're saying about it, because you're almost saying the opposite of Faulkner. He's saying sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism.
Yeah,
And
no.
but in your word fact is interesting, because here's Shelby Foote. I'd love to hear your reaction to this. A fact is not a truth until you love it.
Until you love it. Well, I mean, look, I like working on Lucia Joyce, paying attention to the facts
Yeah,
religiously, like, it just the more attention you pay to the facts, the more astonishing that truth is,
yeah,
and we're trying to figure out what was the truth,
yeah.
and yeah. So I would be very, very, I would adhere to the truth as much as I can, even if trying to imagine something. I really do it faithfully to the facts. Like, and again, it's like I'm also trying to listen and not project my own narrative onto it. I'm really trying to listen and like
Yeah.
see what comes out. Honestly, honestly, like, yeah. So,
Well, there's a lot you're going into, because I thought we could just ooze into film for a second here,
oh yeah,
because
sure, yeah.
then you, at what point, where's your tipping point to go, well, I want to be a documentary filmmaker? Because you work as a journalist, right? That
Well,
then
I
you
did. I'm not really. I did work as a
yeah.
journalist. Yeah, I'm
And
not really
what's
doing
your
that.
tipping point to say I'm going to pursue filmmaking?
Well, I think I found like an arts journalism, which like I really enjoyed. Like you do end up really kind of doing PR for people. And I've got a lot of important things to do, like, that I'm drawn to doing, um, beyond doing PR for other people. Do you know what I
But I
mean?
mean, what kicked you over? I mean, those draft dodgers are, you even mentioned Super 8 film, but where did you first say, well, I'm going to pick up a movie camera or video camera and make film? Where's that tipping point where you go, oh, I can use this medium? Because as a writer, the real irony is about 2 or 3 years ago in the New York Times, there was a big article that said, why do documentaries now say written by? How can you write a documentary? Yeah, you can. You know how? In the editing room. But there are voiceover tracks that are on documentaries. So they are written. But
Mm.
it seems ironic you would say a documentary is written.
Well, you see, a documentary, like you are telling a story. Like you have
Yeah,
what, 26 minutes? And
right.
you have to construct the story. You're not just randomly filming
Yeah,
reality. Do you know what I mean? Like you are creating that. You are,
yeah,
you're creating it, you're writing it. Like, I mean, particularly if you're doing a historical documentary,
yeah.
you do write that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
you absolutely. Even a contemporary documentary, like it's an illusion to think that something that you watch, it's not constructed and written.
Yeah.
Everything is constructed
Well,
is written.
that's the greatest. Frederick Wiseman calls it reality fiction. I mean,
Yes.
he's the most pure documentarian ever, and he calls it reality fiction. And I've talked to him about. I mean, it's like I says, "What are you trying to do?" And he goes, "Make a good film." And I
No,
goes, "Well, what's a good film?" He goes, "Charlie Chaplin." I goes, "Well, who did you read growing up?" He goes, "Henry James." So
mm,
it's totally telling a story, but we don't think he sets up a camera in a prison and you watch these guys. There's no lighting, there's no voiceover, there's no music, there's no nothing. You're an observational cinema. But you kind of have different styles of cinema, but I would say you're more like an essay documentarian. You're an
mm,
essayist,
yes.
film
I
essays.
I like, yeah, because it is like an essay, but like I look at it like with the camera, you're writing with the camera.
You're writing with the camera, but when
Oh,
did you decide that? Like, where's your tipping point? After your MA, where are you going? Okay, now I'm going to write with the camera.
oh no, well, I always wanted to do film. It just takes a while, because with writing, you just need a pen or a laptop. But
Right.
with film, you have to get a camera, you have to get funding. You have
Did
to.
you, so are you a self-taught filmmaker or did you go to film classes?
I went to a few, like I did the UCD NYU script writing summer school. Like I've
Right,
done a few things. Yeah.
right.
I actually I did that. I did some basic TV production, like just kind of like a couple of like night
Yeah,
courses. Um I did a film option, French cinema at UCD.
yeah,
That's more like a historical thing. But then
yeah,
I did trainee AD, trainee assistant director on
yeah.
lots of films, short films, feature films here. I was an extra in a lot of films, and so like that, you sort of learn like that, and then you're doing assistant director, and then, okay, how will you get your own? And then it's a bit like doing journalism, like doing that. You can't continue doing that if you want to do your own projects. Okay,
Yeah.
you learn a lot, but then you have to like take a jump at some point. Because it's not easy to do your own projects.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's talk about Lucia for a second.
yeah.
That's an amazing film. And a screenwriting teacher told me great art, great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker.
Mm.
What role did intention play in your creative process when you made your Lucia dance film?
Well, there's a huge amount of research in that.
Yeah.
Um, like connecting Lucia Joyce with W.B. Yeats' Abbey theater ballets, right? Which took years and years of research, even though I didn't realize I was researching that all the time. But where I ended up was a culmination of many years of excavation. You know what I mean? And it was only by excavating all this dance history, say through my book Irish Moves, that then I could see the connections.
Yeah.
Then I did a lot of radio documentaries, and I did one about Mrs. W.B. Yeats, George Yeats, right?
Yeah.
And while doing that, so like it's all mulling around in my head, do you know what I mean? But I was reading the correspondence between Mr. and Mrs. Yeats,
Yeah.
and then suddenly I saw in one of their correspondences that he said, Tom has recommended among all other public dancers Joyce's daughter.
Wow.
We may use her one day. And I was like, what? And it was like after I read Carol Schloss's book, I was so shocked, like, that she'd been a modern dancer. And
Yeah.
then I thought, wow, what if those dates coincided with what Yeats was doing at the Abbey?
Yeah.
And then I realized the dates coincided exactly. And then when I was doing the documentary about George Yeats and I was reading that, and next thing I found this Yeats saying that in a letter to his
Yeah.
wife who was at home running
Yeah.
the Abbey School of Ballet. And I was like, bang, bing. You know what I mean? Like, wow, this is what was going on. And nobody knows that. Like, I mean,
So
even
your
like
intention was to inform people of this epiphany you had.
my intention was to shine light on this.
Shine light.
Shine
But
light on this, on this context, which
yeah.
makes complete sense
Yeah.
of what Lucia was doing artistically. And like, I mean, like I admire Carol Schloss's groundbreaking book,
Yeah.
like enormously. Carol Schloss is a Joycean.
Yeah.
She's not a dance historian. She did
Yeah.
great work. But like, as I mentioned, like, well, first of all, like nobody had ever paid attention to the dance history in Ireland.
Yeah.
Very few people knew about the Abbey School of Ballet.
Yeah.
There was no way that she could have made, but all that work that I was doing suddenly slotted in
Yeah.
with what she had raised up, and suddenly those two things together could tell a whole story
Yeah.
about, the intentionality of Lucia Joyce. That
It's amazing.
nobody gave her, nobody understood. They're so ignorant, but nobody gave her like the benefit of the doubt. Do you know what I mean? They're just like, oh,
Yeah.
she's mad schizophrenic, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And suddenly
Right,
I could,
it's amazing because, I asked for 90 minutes as we're already there. Can
oh
you
yeah.
go well, let's plan a part 2 because we barely scratched the surface. If you could, down the line, 3 or 4 months down the line, but can you go a little longer now, or do you gotta
Yeah,
get going?
yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
How
Um,
many minutes more can you go? Like 10 or 15 or what?
yeah, 15 minutes,
Okay,
15
let's go
more.
15 more. But let's stay on that for a second because this is Marcel Duchamp. Well, no, first of all, I have one question. What came out first, your dance history book or Lucia film? Dance film.
Oh no. So first of all, okay. Well, I just said that I never saw contemporary dance growing up. I didn't
Right.
even know it existed, right? I was like in a convent. I was on a native reserve in remote North Ontario, and then I was in a convent school in like rural Ireland, So anyway, even in Dublin, like never came across it. The first thing that I saw, first time I saw contemporary dance was a video of Cafe Muller, Pina Bausch
Yeah.
at Avignon Theatre Festival when I was doing my MA.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I spent the whole year doing an MA in modern drama studies, watching theater, going to every single thing that was on. And next thing I saw this like a glimpse of a video of Cafe Muller at Avignon Theatre Festival. And I was like, what the hell is that? Like, what? Like it was just so weird. And like, I couldn't get it out of my head. Right. And that just kept coming back to it and like, what on earth was that? And so then I had to figure that out. And that was my introduction to contemporary dance. Right. And then that's when like I wrote like my PhD, which was a book on Pina Bausch.
Then
Right.
you wrote the book and then you made the film after the book.
No, then I came back to Ireland and there was contemporary dance happening. I was like, whoa, wow, this is amazing, And I was like, but what's the history of like where did this come from?
Right.
And I was like, where's the book about this that I can read about the history of this? What happened here? How come we're seeing contemporary dance? And there was no book.
Wow.
Right? So I was like, somebody has to do this book, you know? And then like, I'm like, okay, there has to be a book. And then I saw that Riverdance were sponsoring some arts events and stuff like that. And I was like, they should sponsor the book,
Yeah.
So I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter to Moya Doherty of Riverdance, and I told her, I was like, there's no book. Like there has to be a book, and this is what should be in the book, and blah blah blah. And next thing, I was called in and had a chat, not with her, but with her assistant. And then she said to me, I totally wasn't prepared. She goes, okay, how much do you want? And I was like,
That is great.
so I hadn't a clue about money. Anyway, I said a figure and she said, okay, here you go. We'll give you, So I did the book. And then in the book, I discovered so much that had
Right.
not, registered on the cultural
Yeah.
history. And like, as we know, Jerry, like James Joyce was really into dance, and he was really into modern dance. And but nobody, it had never crossed anybody's mind to pay
Yeah.
attention to this,
But
um
doesn't Carol Schloss's book say Joy isn't her kind of theory that he watched her kind of free-form Martha Graham, Grateful Dead dance around the living room, and then he put that into his book, Finnegan's Wake. He wrote as though it was almost like this free-form contemporary dance way of writing.
yeah, he was into it himself already. Do you know what I
He was
mean? Like,
into it, but then he saw her doing it in
yes.
front
And
of him.
she not only that, but she brought him to see modern dance.
She
And
brought him to see it.
who else would bring him?
Amazing. That is so heavy. Yeah.
And she brought him to see, and like they went to the Ballet Suédois, and with George Antheil and
Oh, really? George
Ballet
Anson.
Russe. He went to the
Yeah.
Ballet Russe. They're in Paris, like,
Yeah.
but but then she brought him as well, and he took notes in the programs, and you can see his notes, colors, whatever. And like, look, I'm no expert on Finnegan's Wake, but like the Rainbow Girls is, in
Yeah.
my opinion, is definitely her dance group, Rythme
Yeah.
Couleur,
Yeah.
So she gave him access to this,
Yeah.
and he himself loved to dance.
Yeah.
And he had his own freestyle
Yeah.
spider dance, and his biographer, Herbert Gorman, has an incredible description of Joyce dancing as if he has no bones at all.
Wow.
So you can just imagine. But anyway, so I did that book, and then I discovered 1940s Irish German modern dance pioneer Erin Brady, who nobody knew about, even in the dance world. She'd been
Yeah.
never, and Alwyn Fawere played her, and I made two documentaries about Erin Brady, and those
Yeah.
are my first film documentaries.
Those
And
are your first films, and then
yeah,
you eventually made Lucia.
and then Alwyn Fawere, who I was so lucky to get. She's just an
Yeah.
incredible muse, I would
Yeah.
say. She's the one who, turned me on to Lucia Joyce.
I see.
Yes. And then that's when I then read all this and went, oh my God. And then I could see how it related with all the other stuff that I had excavated through
Yeah.
the book and the other doc. And then I could see how it all linked in together. And
Yeah.
nobody had ever looked at that or considered that. And I
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute, this is here. Like, it's in black and white. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And Lucia's been written off because people are ignorant
Yeah.
about this art form. And even Carol Schloss said, when I did the radio documentary about Lucia Joyce, she said, we have not, as Joyceans, we haven't been able to read her properly because we don't have that dance. And we talked about language. They're not
Yeah.
familiar with that language of
Yeah.
dance and modern dance. And she was the first one to acknowledge that, like, herself. And it's
Amazing.
when you look at it from that other perspective, and not only that, Samuel Beckett was completely into modern dance.
Yeah.
Before he met Lucia, and Lucia was like at the top of her prowess, before she met Samuel Beckett. Where had Samuel Beckett been? He had been at with his cousin Peggy Sinclair at a modern dance summer camp in Vienna. No, near Vienna, in Schloss, whatever, just out Luxembourg, outside Vienna. So he was totally into this modern dance as well. But people don't it didn't seem to register,
Yeah.
They were very well informed. And Tom McGreevy was like a dance critic, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah. And then weirdly, like when Tom McGreevy came back to Dublin, he's not known as a dance critic, right? He became the director of the National Gallery. He wrote experimental poetry. Do you know what he'd been doing in the 20s before he came to Paris? He was writing for T.S. Eliot's Criterion magazine, reviews of the Ballet Russe.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he was best friends with George Yates and W.B. And he himself was trying to write dance no plays, dance plays. He had written librettos, like, you know, Joy
Amazing. So
Clark.
you learned how to find these patterns, recognize them, and give us a bigger picture, what's called comprehensive awareness of these things that weren't written about. But
Yeah.
this poet
I'm
critic,
learning. It's like a revelation all the time for me, like, oh, this relates to that. And
yeah,
oh, like, yeah.
that's really what McLuhan's all about. Is pattern recognition leads to comprehensive awareness in the
Mm,
big picture, the bigger picture that's unknown. But this poet critic Helen Vendler died a couple months ago, and in her obit it said, "I write to explain things to myself." And I thought
yes.
that was an amazing comment. But Duchamp, who's in Paris with Joyce the same time, says there's no art without an audience. So how much in making these uh, uh, original 4 or 5 films that you made, how
Mm.
much were you thinking of your potential viewers when you were making your films?
Um,
What role did the audience, the awareness of an audience have in your creative process?
well, I'm doing it to like raise awareness in the audience,
Yeah,
you know, of something that they don't know already. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I'm trying to help, like, shine light on this suppressed story. And like, by the way, I just want to emphasize the collaboration. So for example, in the Lucia Joy's Full Capacity, I collaborated with Ivana Lynch, and you know, that was huge. And with the choreographer, Megan Kennedy, all of the we it was like we were all collaborating to shine light on this suppressed story, and we were all shared the same mission. It was
yeah,
like a mission, you know. um and like Ivana, like I had read that Ivana, felt an affinity with Lucia Joyce and would really love to play her, you
yeah,
know and I knew her uncle, and I mentioned it to her uncle. And I said, "Oh, I read, that Ivana said this." I said, "Well, she can always be in my film, like kind of like, I know she wants to do Hollywood, but." And so he put us in touch. But like, Ivana had that connection with her. She herself, she's written a book about this, about her own mental health issues. She had suffered from anorexia nervosa. And the name of the book is The Opposite of Butterfly Hunting, in which she writes about this and how was creativity. It's about this fine line
yeah,
between mental health and creativity.
yeah,
And this was how she empathized with and connected with Lucia Joyce. And do you know what I mean? It was us collaborating together,
yeah,
me bringing my
yeah.
vision and contribution, and her bringing her own understanding and skill and talent, and so yeah, it was a like a collaborative mission, I would say.
It's
And also
beautiful.
it was crowdfunded, so you know what I mean. I like that. It's very much like people power, especially it's
Yeah,
crowdfunding to correct a narrative. Do you know what I mean?
yes,
It's not
beautiful.
just some kind of vanity
Yeah,
project. It's actually, no, we need to change this narrative and correct it and shine light on this. And, you know, it's like a mission. Like it's like, oh, you have to get this message out.
yeah.
It's really important. So
It's
that's
like finding a commonality in community, and you have this clarion call. But
yes.
Deirdre, I wanted to emphasize 2 things. We gotta do part 2, so I'll send you some dates and we'll book that.
Yeah.
And secondly, You should consider doing a little workshop with the New York Finnegan's Wake group. They will have guests come in on their Zoom and just really talk everything you just told me about Lucia and Yates and Joyce scribbling the notes. They would love that, and they're really great Finnegan's Wake group. So I'll hook you up with Judd, who is the main guy there, and you should really follow through. It'd be great. It's going to be a weird time because it's going to be like 7 p.m. New York time. So, that's going to be, a hard time for you to fit 8 hours.
Midnight.
That's sometime different. It's different than me because I'm California time. They're New York time. But anyways, even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. And
and by the way, like the other thing about the Finnegan's Wake, and as I said, I love, when I get a chance to drop in on the Sweeney's Finnegan's Wake and they, read a bit of text together or whatever. But like Lucia illustrated many fragments of Finnegan's Wake.
Are they can people see them?
Yeah. The Mime of Mick, Nick, and the Maggies.
That's a book?
Well, that's a fragment of
right.
Finnegan's
But I
Wake.
mean, where do they see these illustrations?
I think maybe online, but like that's another connection between her and Finnegan's Wake, and it's
we can advise people to seek it out on the internet and see those illustrations.
Yeah, because they come up for sale at auction.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can see them online in various auction sites, so like that's a really interesting thing to think about.
Phenomenal.
And pay attention to. Yeah.
Very much so. Thank you so much, Deirdre. It's been so fun and enlightening, and I appreciate all your work. It's just so incredible what you do, and keep doing it. And let's book part 2 and get more enlightenment for me, because I'm learning a lot. Thank you so much.
Well, that's very motivating. Thank you. It's really motivating me a lot to hear that. So, and thank you so much. And all those wacky questions. It was great to be asked them. Like, amazing. Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay,
it's like Zen Cohen's,
They're Zen Cohen-ish. Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, the name of my book is Strange Questions. So there you go. I'll send you a PDF. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh, do. Please do. Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, bye.
Too. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Deirdre. This was so fun. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Take care.
You too.